The sad reality of life is that there are millions of abandoned animals on the streets. Some end up in shelters and, if they're lucky, get adopted. Sadly, if the animal is sick, old, or doesn't look cute and pretty, its chances of getting adopted are almost zero. However, some people in the world find beauty in unexpected places. People like Franziska Franken. Franziska saw a cat named Bean on the website of a shelter and immediately wanted to adopt her. Later, she found out that the kitten had been on the website for over a month and in the shelter for almost a year. The shelter said that people thought she looked grumpy and ugly and no one wanted her. That broke Franziska's heart, and she knew that she needed to take Bean home with her. This is the adorable kitten named Bean. Franziska Franken told the whole story to Bored Panda. I moved into a bigger flat so I could have a cat again. When I lived with my parents, we had one. His name is Joker, and I love him to death. So naturally, when I moved out, something was missing. But Joker is an outdoor cat in a rural area, and my flat was quite small, so it just felt unfair to take him just so I felt better. He wouldn't have been happy. I lived 1 year without a cat and then moved into a bigger flat with a balcony so I could adopt a cat. I wasn't planning on getting one right away because it's always a commitment. Well, that was until I saw Bean's picture while browsing my local shelter's website one night. Franziska Franken saw her on the website of a shelter and immediately fell in love. I saw her photo and fell in love the second I saw her. Well, at first I laughed because the pictures were so funny and I'd never seen a cat like this before. She looked like she was 20+ pounds and a real rough street gangster, so naturally I had to meet her. I sent them an email with personal information and stuff and really tried my best to make it as informative as possible so they would pick me to adopt her. I couldn't sleep all night because I was so nervous and sent her picture to all my friends. She was described as a feisty little diva who had some health problems due to being an exotic short hair. One lovely friend of mine said, "Well, she is exotic indeed," and that stuck with me forever. The next day, I got a call from a friendly lady from the rescue who asked me if Bean was really the cat I wanted to apply for because apparently nobody had been interested in her before, despite her being on their website for a month already and in a shelter for several. Bean was found in a trailer park and had a horrible eye infection, struvite stones, and a beginning blockage. She was neither neutered, chipped, marked, or had she ever been medically treated. They got her at really the last second to save her life. Franziska didn't know if the shelter would give her Bean, so she was really nervous. To Franziska's surprise, nobody wanted Bean because she looked sad and grumpy. Bean had been living at the shelter for many months. The woman who called me was scared that I just pressed the wrong button or something and was not really interested in her at all. I teared up at the thought of poor Bean having nobody that wanted to love her, so I directly made an appointment with them for the 8th of January. I was so nervous. Franziska was so happy when she saw Bean in real life, she cried and took her home on the same day. So, on January 8th, I put on my nicest blouse and trousers and went to see her. I was absolutely overdressed, but wanted to make a good first impression. They were all so friendly and loving. One woman led me to her room, and what I saw was much more beautiful than I could ever imagine. Bean was, and still is, so tiny and small. She has very stubby legs and a short tail, and the cutest face I had ever seen. I started crying when I walked into her room because I was so overwhelmed. She was not at all what I had imagined, but it was so much better than that. I stayed there for several hours and texted my friend, who I previously told that he didn't need to come to pick me up because there is no way they will let me take a cat just like that upon the first time meeting her. I told him to please come to get me because there was no way I would leave without Bean. His reply, "I know, I'm already waiting outside." I asked the shelter workers if I could take her home and they let me because they saw how much I loved her already. They provided me with basic tools like a litter box, toys, and a carrier, and I took her home with me. No way could I spend another night without her. She rubbed her face against my legs and was so cuddly and loving when I was there. When I left to sign the contract, she climbed up a chair to watch me from inside. Her sad eyes just made me cry again. Bean adapted very quickly to her new home and now has a loving and caring owner. I got her home with me and she immediately wandered off onto the couch and slept for several hours as if she never rested before. Only after that, she started exploring. She spent the first night in bed with me and has done that ever since. Francisca also told us more about how Bean adapted to her new home after more time. The people from the shelter told me to keep her in one room for the first 2 days so she could adapt without stress. So when I bought the scratching tree and tried to bring it into the room, she just escaped and started exploring the apartment. There was no way I could keep her in just that one room for several days. She's very sneaky and tried to find ways out all the time. So I just let her because she wanted to. She adapted well and spent the first night next to me in the bedroom and has been sleeping by my side ever since. She was a little overly attached at first. She would not leave my side 1 second. I think it's because she was afraid I would bring her back to the shelter if she wasn't all cuddly and stuff, but soon realized that she could just be herself and started embracing more of her sassy, diva-like personality. That's when I knew she was finally home. We asked Francisca about Bean's health now and how she's been doing. Bean is doing well. She's bubbly and curious and would spend the whole day outside or on the balcony if she could. She was in quite a rough condition when I first got her. She had an eye infection that was luckily already treated by the shelter and struvite crystals in her urine which could cause blockage, but luckily it didn't. She's getting special urinary health food and her eye is healed beautifully. Because she's an exotic shorthair, she's got some issues with breathing sometimes, like excessive snoring, but luckily it's all within normal range for the breed. Francisca thinks that Bean's unique look is amazing and couldn't even dream of a more perfect cat. Taking her in was the best thing to happen to me. I think it was meant to be because nobody but me was interested in this beautiful cat, even though she'd been in the shelter for some time. Of course, I have to be home a lot more now and can't be away the whole day and night to visit my parents, for example. Well, I probably could, but I just feel bad about it. She's always waking me up in the morning and spends the day by my side. She's bringing me so much joy, and it's just the best feeling to know that someone is at home waiting for me when I come back from work. She gets up on the windowsill when I leave for work and watches me walk away while I wave at her. Am I a crazy cat mom? Maybe. And she waits at the door when I come back. I've had cats the majority of my life, but she's quite special. Sometimes I think she's a little extraterrestrial pretending to be a cat. She doesn't like chicken or cat milk or tuna, but she goes wild over olives, pudding cup lids, and nuts, but just licking them. No worries, I won't let her eat them, just the olives. She loves screaming at the Amazon delivery driver, but only him, no other postal services, and is interested in insects, but couldn't bother less about mice in the garden. Someone needs to tell her how to be a cat. Taking her in was the best thing to happen to me. Francisca shared that she would perhaps have some more kittens in the future. I would love to have more cats so she can have a friend and won't be lonely when I'm at work, but she hates other cats with a passion. She won't attack them, as far as I know from the rescue, but she stares them down and growls at them until they're too scared to even eat. Hopefully, she will accept a friend sometime in the future, maybe in a couple of years. Her vet said it's probably from her living on the street and always having to fight over food and being attacked by other cats. So maybe when she learns that she's not in danger anymore, she will accept a friend in a couple of years. We asked Francisca why she thinks people go for pretty animals. Tough question. People always want to buy pretty things. I included them in some ways. A nice car, pretty clothes, a beautiful house. So of course, a lot of people also want a pretty pet. Also, I think certain breeds have a good reputation in society, and owning an expensive dog breed is like a status symbol. Not for all people, of course. Many people also think that buying a purebred dog or cat is better than adopting from the rescue because when they buy from a breeder, they have documents about health and heritage, which I can somewhat understand. If they adopt from a shelter, they get some information about the momentary health at best. A lot of people prefer pretty and perfect pets because they associate them with health and beauty. Why would I buy a car that I don't like look-wise? And why would I buy a car that has a broken brake? I understand that people don't want sick and/or ugly pets, but beauty is just what society tells us it is. Of course, it can be a challenge to adopt a pet with medical problems, but veterinary healthcare has developed so much, and these pets have already gone through so much. They deserve a loving home. A lot of people said Bean was ugly, but I think she's perfect, and she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. She also shares why she thinks adoption is better. I'm not shaming anyone for buying from breeders. Please don't think that. I just personally think it's better to adopt. Apart from a lot of horrible stuff that is going on in some parts of the breeding market and the fact that in a lot of shelters, unwanted pets are still put down and killed, there are so many pets that don't have homes, and a lot of them have had a tough life before, so they deserve all the love and cuddles they can get in a loving home. Again, I'm not judging anyone's choices, because adopting from a shelter can be tough, as some cats can have medical or behavioral problems, but the majority do not. They may not have a clear medical history or the best ancestors, but heritage should not be the only important thing to look at when getting a pet. Supporting your local shelter and adopting a cat is giving a second chance to a neglected animal. They've probably gone through a lot and may not be able to show how thankful they are right away, but believe me, you can be the best thing that happens to a shelter rescue cat. They deserve a life filled with love and warmth, just like any other pet. Cats' pets are family members. They don't need to be perfect in a literal way, because we are not perfect either. They need to be loved and cared for so they can have a beautiful life. Adopting a cat from a shelter is the best thing that has happened to me. She doesn't have to have the best ancestors and medical history, because she's giving me a lot of love and is my support in tough times, regardless of her history. Francisca and Bean are very happy they found each other. Would I have ever thought that I would adopt an exotic short-hair mix with medical problems? No, she was not what I was looking for, but I fell in love with her the second I saw her, and she's the best thing that happened to me. I don't judge anyone who buys from breeders, but please take a moment to consider adopting a pet from a rescue or shelter. Go visit them, if possible, and I promise you it will warm your heart. I cried the first time I saw Bean because my heart just hurt so much that nobody wanted her. If I could, I would have adopted all of them, but sadly I couldn't. Bean is my little fighter, and she is bringing me so much joy and love. She's a little diva, but I can be too, so we're a match made in heaven. I believe it was meant to be that I found her, because I couldn't think of any cat more perfect for me.